The day started like any other. Diane was preparing her monthly spreadsheet, the one she kept for her parents' expenses: rent, groceries, prescriptions, and the occasional dinner at a mid-range restaurant. She had taken over their finances 5 years ago, after her father's mild stroke and her mother's increasingly erratic memory. Every bill was paid on time, every need accounted for. It was around 9:30 p.m. when she called to remind them their heat would auto-renew soon. They didn't answer. Diane rarely left voicemails. She preferred texting, but something that night made her press the record button. That's when she heard it. The call had connected, but they didn't notice. Voices drifted through. "She acts like she's some kind of savior," her father said. "Honestly, Eileen, she's just a pathetic disappointment. Always has been." Her mother's voice followed, light, dismissive, like someone swatting a fly. "Well, it's true. She thinks money makes up for her personality. No friends, no man, no children. It's embarrassing." Diane sat frozen, phone to her ear, barely breathing. She didn't hang up. She waited. She listened. And then, with a shaking hand, she hit the red button and sat back in silence. The next morning, she didn't cry. She didn't scream. She didn't call them or explain. She simply logged into the banking app and revoked the joint access she'd set up. She canceled the grocery delivery, the pharmacy auto refill. She called the landlord and removed her payment method from the rent account. By noon, she had made the decision to cut them off entirely. 2 days later, Eileen left a chipper voicemail thanking her for a lovely soup delivery, not yet aware of the new reality settling in. Diane didn't respond. She didn't owe them that. The first sign of disruption came a week later. Diane's phone buzzed with a call from her parents' landline. She didn't answer. Another came the next day, this time a number she didn't recognize, but with their area code. Then came the texts. "Hi, sweetie, your father says the heating bill bounced. Could you check? Might be an error." "Diane, the landlord says rent wasn't paid. Did something happen? Your father is on edge. Please call us back." She read them all, deleted them one by one, said nothing. For the first time in her adult life, silence felt like control. 2 weeks later, she saw them. She hadn't meant to. She was grocery shopping at a small market on the other side of town, the kind she used to drive them to before her father's license was revoked. She was halfway through the canned soups aisle when she saw her mother standing near the pharmacy section, holding a small paper bag and arguing with the pharmacist. Her hair was unbrushed. Her cardigan was misbuttoned. Her voice, normally sharp, sounded frail. Diane ducked behind the shelves. Her heart pounded. She knew she should leave. Instead, she watched. Eileen shuffled away, visibly flustered. Walter was waiting outside, sitting on a bench. His legs bounced. His hands fidgeted with an empty cigarette pack. He looked thinner. That night, Diane poured herself a glass of wine. The image of them lingered, aged, diminished, unraveling without her. But her chest held no warmth, only a tight, low ache. Was it guilt? Or something colder? Logan would have known. He always said Diane was the lucky one, the one they used, but the one who stayed on their good side. At least until now. She hadn't spoken to Logan in 8 years. The last time, he'd called her from a halfway house in Trenton. He wanted money. She'd said no. He told her she was just like them. She'd hung up on him too. It was early February when the first letter came. A wrinkled envelope, handwritten, no return address. Diane almost threw it away, assuming it was junk. But the uneven scrawl on the front, her father's, made her pause. She opened it slowly, like it might explode. "Diane, we don't know what's going on. Did something happen? Your mother says she hasn't heard from you. The landlord is threatening eviction. We haven't had heat for a week. We're scared. Please call. Dad." No apology. No acknowledgement of the words that had triggered everything. Just confusion, blame disguised as concern, and the expectation that Diane would sweep it all up like she always had. She folded the letter once and placed it in the drawer beside her bed. She didn't respond. That night, the wind howled against her windows. She sat by her fireplace with a blanket around her shoulders, the silence ringing louder than ever. For the first time, she wondered what she would do if they were truly homeless. Not hypothetically. Truly. Would she step in? Would she forgive? She poured herself another glass of wine. 3 days later, she received a message from a woman named Tracy Ford, a name she hadn't heard in over 2 decades. Logan's ex-girlfriend. Hi, Diane. Sorry to bother you. Logan's been staying with me off and on. He's not well. He says he doesn't have anyone else. Thought maybe you'd want to know. It was like a door creaked open in the back of her mind, one she'd sealed years ago. Logan had been brilliant once. Charismatic, infuriating, magnetic. Their parents had adored him, until they didn't. After his third arrest, after the rehab stints, the job firings, the manipulations, Diane had been the one they leaned on to clean up what Logan wrecked. He had burned every bridge, including hers. Still, she couldn't shake the image, her once vibrant brother crashing on an old flames couch, hollowed out by addiction and failure, and now reaching, however clumsily, for her. The next morning, she opened her old photo albums. Pages of birthdays, holidays, younger versions of herself standing awkwardly beside Logan as their parents beamed between them. It looked like a happy family. It wasn't. The letter from her father was followed by another a week later. This one was shorter, more frantic. Diane, please, the landlord gave us a final notice. Your mother is sick. We don't know what to do. I know you're angry, but this is too much. Dad. She stared at the page until the ink blurred. No apology. Still. That night, she drove by their building. Not to go in, just to look. The lights were off. No wreath on the door like Eileen used to hang even when it wasn't a holiday. No warm lamp glow behind the curtain. Just gray silence and a dented trash can tipped on its side. She drove past without stopping. Back home, the loneliness grew louder. It had crept in like a fog, soft, unannounced, but suffocating. Her friends had long since faded. Some drifted after retirement, others after she turned down one invitation too many. She'd always said she was too busy, too tired, too needed. But no one needed her now. She sat at the kitchen table the next morning, rereading Tracy's message about Logan. Then, in a decision that surprised even herself, she replied, "Thanks for letting me know. Is he okay?" A response came quickly. "He says he's clean, but I'm not sure. He's thin, paranoid, sleeping on my couch. I think he wants to reach out but doesn't know how." Diane stared at the screen. The version of Logan she remembered, the golden boy who could charm anyone, whose smile could melt their mother's sharpest mood, felt like a ghost. That evening, she found an old voicemail she hadn't deleted. It was from 2 years ago. Logan, half drunk, slurring, "You're not better than me. You think they loved you more? You're just their damn accountant. That's all you ever were." She pressed delete. The next day, a third letter arrived. "We're out of food. Your mother fainted yesterday. I had to use the neighbor's phone. We don't know what to do. Please, Diane. We didn't mean it." Dad. That was new. We didn't mean it. Still, it wasn't quite sorry. And yet, for the first time, something in her chest moved. Not forgiveness, not love, but recognition. They were falling apart, and not just financially. They were finally afraid. It had been almost 2 months since Diane severed ties. Her mornings had become rituals of avoidance. She'd skim headlines, drink coffee in silence, then spend the rest of the day working from her home office, taking on freelance tax clients. She told herself she was too busy to think about them. But the truth was simpler. She didn't want to know what would tip her over the edge. She hadn't told anyone about the letters, until Marion called. "Hey, stranger," her former coworker chirped on the line. "Are you alive?" They hadn't spoken in nearly a year. Marion was blunt, funny, and the closest thing Diane had ever had to a real friend. They agreed to meet for lunch. Over salads and weak coffee, Marion laughed about office gossip and travel plans, but Diane mostly nodded, not fully there. Eventually, Marion leaned in. "You okay? You look drawn." "I'm fine," Diane said. "Just work. Tax season." Marion studied her. "Is it the family again?" That word, again, tightened something in Diane's chest. She looked down. "I cut them off." Marion blinked. "You what?" "They called me a disappointment. After everything. I heard them say it, on accident, and I just stopped." For a moment, Marion didn't speak. Then she exhaled. Honestly, good for you. Diane almost smiled. Almost. That night, her phone buzzed again. A message from Tracy. Logan's in the hospital, dehydrated, some kind of seizure. He listed you as emergency contact years ago. They couldn't find anyone else. Diane stared at the screen. There it was. The moment she had imagined and feared. Not her parents. Not a letter. A hospital call. She didn't move. She didn't cry. She just sat in the dark, feeling something in her gut unravel. The next morning, she called the hospital. Yes, the nurse said, after confirming her identity. He's stable now, weak but awake. Would you like to speak to him? She hesitated. Her voice caught in her throat. No, not yet. She hung up. And for the first time in weeks, she cried. Diane didn't visit the hospital. Instead, she sent a small prepaid card to the front desk, no note attached. It was impersonal, quiet, and safe, just like she needed it to be. She checked online a few days later. Logan had been discharged. Tracy hadn't messaged again. The silence hummed like an old tune. Her parents, though, hadn't gone quiet. A fourth letter arrived. Sloppier handwriting, shorter sentences. We're being evicted. We don't know where to go. Your mother is coughing blood. Diane, please just talk to us. Dad. Diane read it on her front porch in the cold. Then she sat there, holding the letter, staring at the bushes she'd meant to trim for weeks, but hadn't. Her coffee turned lukewarm beside her. The line that haunted her wasn't about eviction. It was, please just talk to us. Talk about what? How she gave up vacations, retirement savings, peace of mind, just to be the invisible daughter who filled their fridge? How they made her feel like a visitor in her own childhood? That night, she dreamed of her childhood home. Only in the dream, it wasn't a house. It was a courtroom. She was on the stand. Her parents sat at the defense table. Logan was nowhere. The judge kept asking, "What did you expect them to do?" And she had no answer. The next day, Marion called again. "Come with me," she said. "I'm going to an open mic night. It's at a little bookstore in the city. You need to be around people. You need to breathe again." Diane hesitated, but said yes. The place was warm and filled with strangers, none of whom asked anything from her. No one there knew about the letters, the hospital, the silence. For 2 hours, she laughed at bad poetry and drank too sweet tea in a chipped cup. It was the first evening she hadn't thought about her parents in days, until she got home. There, waiting on her voicemail, was a message from her father. Not written. Spoken. His voice trembled. "I don't know what else to say, Diane. We're sorry. We need you. She needs you. I was wrong. I was cruel. I should have said this sooner, but I didn't know how. I thought you'd always be there." Silence. Then, "We didn't want this." The next morning, Diane listened to the voicemail again. Then once more. She didn't cry. She didn't rage. But something about hearing her father's voice crack under the weight of consequence stirred a knot of feeling she couldn't name. She went to the sink and washed a dish she didn't need to wash. Her hands trembled. By noon, she called the building manager listed in her parents' lease file. She still had copies of everything. "Yes," the woman said flatly. "They're 2 months behind. We've been more than patient. They're being evicted in 6 days." Diane thanked her, then sat in silence. She didn't owe them anything. She repeated that like a prayer, but it didn't land the way it used to. She dialed again, this time her parents' number. It rang 5 times before a slow, breathy voice answered. "Hello?" It was Eileen, weak, raspy, unsure. Diane froze. "It's me," she said. "It's Diane." A pause, then a low sob, like someone trying not to cry. "Oh, Diane. We didn't think you'd ever call." There was no dramatics, no guilt-tripping, just quiet desperation. "Is Dad home?" Diane asked. A shuffle, a clatter, then Walter's voice, raw and unfamiliar. "Diane," he said. We're so sorry." She didn't reply right away. "I know," she said eventually. "I heard your message." Silence hung between them. "I wasn't sure if you meant it," she added. I didn't know how to, he said. I thought if we just said it didn't matter, then maybe it wouldn't. But it did. I said horrible things. I was angry, at myself, at life. But I took it out on you. Diane felt her throat tighten. You always did. More silence. But this time, it wasn't cold, it was waiting. Finally, she asked, Is she really coughing blood? She won't go to the hospital. She's scared of the bill. I've been giving her warm tea and crackers. We're out of everything else. Diane closed her eyes. She didn't want to go back. She didn't want to be their solution again. But she also didn't want to be the one who watched them die out of principle. I'll call a doctor, she said, and a grocery delivery, but that's all. I'm not coming over. That's more than enough, Walter said, voice cracking again. She hung up before she could change her mind. Later that night, she opened a sealed envelope in her drawer. Logan's last letter from rehab, never read. It simply said, If I ever matter again, please let me try. The groceries arrived at her parents' door the next day. She knew because the delivery receipt pinged her email at 3:14 p.m. At 3:27, a voicemail arrived. Thank you, Walter said. We have food now. Eileen cried when she saw the soup. Diane listened, then deleted it. She didn't need gratitude, she needed space. But her chest stayed tight all evening. She poured wine, but didn't drink it. She reheated leftovers, but didn't eat them. She walked her neighborhood 3 times before dark, then lay in bed listening to the hum of her heater, the kind of thing her parents now lived without. The next morning, Marion texted, How are you? Diane typed back, I don't know. Tired. You need anything? She stared at the screen a long time, then typed, No, but thank you. But the truth was, she did need something. She just didn't know what it was. That afternoon, she drove to the hospital where Logan had been admitted. Not to visit, just to see the place. It was clean, modern, with wide windows facing the street. She sat in her car, engine off, watching people go in and out. Nurses, visitors, volunteers. Life kept moving. She wasn't sure how long she sat there. Long enough for the sun to shift. Long enough to realize that Logan, for all his chaos, had been reaching for her in ways her parents never had. The letter. The contact at the hospital. Even Tracy reaching out. It all came back to the same thing. Logan had burned bridges, yes. But he hadn't disappeared. She found his number. It was still saved from years ago. Her thumb hovered. Then she pressed call. It rang once, twice. Yeah? The voice was hoarse, tired, suspicious. Logan? A pause, then, Di? She hadn't heard that name in a decade. Yeah, it's me. Another pause. Then something unexpected. He started crying. Not loud, not dramatic. Just a soft, raw sound of someone completely unprepared to be heard. I didn't think you'd ever, he started, then stopped. I didn't either, Diane said quietly. They didn't say much after that. No accusations, no explanations. Just the sound of 2 people realizing how far they'd fallen, and how far they might still have to go. But for the first time, Diane didn't feel like she was carrying everything alone. 2 days passed. Logan called again, not to ask for anything, just to talk. They spoke in cautious circles at first, neutral updates, small jokes, scattered memories. But by the 3rd call, the layers began to peel. You know they never helped me, right? Logan said, voice flat. They just wanted me to pretend it never happened. Rehab was your idea. Dad wouldn't even pick me up. Diane already knew. But hearing it said aloud made it real. I thought you hated me, she said quietly. I did, he replied. But not because of you, because you had it together, because you were strong, because they looked at you like the reliable one and me like the disaster. They didn't respect me, Diane said. They just used me. Yeah, Logan muttered. That sounds more like it. Silence stretched between them, but it didn't feel empty anymore. Then her phone buzzed, a call from a local urgent care clinic. Eileen. Diane clicked over. Miss Keller? The nurse's voice was crisp. Your mother collapsed at home. Neighbor brought her in. We've stabilized her, but she needs to be admitted for pneumonia. She refused hospital transport until we got you on the line." Diane's stomach knotted. "I'll come." She arrived 30 minutes later. Eileen lay on a cot, cheeks pale, eyes sunken, breath wheezy. Walter sat beside her, clutching her hand like a man trying to hold back time. Diane stood at the door, unsure, but Eileen turned her head. "You came." "Of course I came." Eileen's voice was soft. "I didn't think I deserved it." "You didn't," Diane replied, "but you still needed it." Tears slid down Eileen's cheeks. "I was jealous of you, of how strong you were. I thought if I laughed at you, it would make me feel better." "It didn't," Diane said. "It only made me stop trusting you." Walter finally looked up. His eyes were red-rimmed, but his tone was clear. "We failed you, both of you. I wish I could undo it." "You can't," Diane said, "but you can stop pretending none of it happened." For the first time, they didn't argue. Later, as Eileen was transported to the hospital, Walter pulled Diane aside. "Will you come again?" "I don't know," she said. "But I didn't come for you. I came because no one should die alone." Walter nodded. "Fair enough." That night, Diane sat in her car outside the hospital. Logan's number stared back at her on the screen. She hit call. "I think I need you," she said when he picked up. "For once," Logan replied. "That makes two of us." The hospital room was small and quiet, save for the soft wheeze of machines. Eileen lay in bed, oxygen tube in her nose, her skin pale against the white sheets. Walter sat in the corner, dozing upright. Diane pulled a chair closer, but didn't sit. She just stood, watching her mother sleep. She thought about every version of herself that had walked through life for their approval. The obedient child, the fixer, the silence keeper. None of them had ever really been seen. But now? She wasn't asking to be seen. She was asking to be free. When Eileen stirred, eyes fluttering open, Diane spoke first. "I'll help pay for care," she said. "But only through the hospital. No more money to you. No more control. If you want to be in my life, it has to be honest." Eileen nodded, lips trembling. "That's fair." Walter didn't say anything, but his head bowed slightly, like a man who understood the weight of what was being returned to him, and what wasn't. 2 days later, Diane brought Logan to the hospital. He didn't want to come at first, but she insisted, not for their parents' sake, but for his. He stood at the doorway awkwardly, then finally stepped in. Eileen lit up at the sight of him, a frail smile cracking her face. Walter reached out to him. They didn't hug, but they didn't walk away either. Progress, in its smallest form. That night, Diane and Logan shared takeout in her kitchen, 2 beer bottles between them. They talked about childhood, the things they remembered, the things they wished they didn't. "You know," Logan said, "I always thought you were the strong one, but I never realized how alone you were." Diane didn't answer right away. Then she looked him in the eye. "I was, but I'm not anymore." She didn't mean just him. She meant herself. For the first time, she was living a life that didn't orbit anyone else's needs. In the weeks that followed, Diane found herself doing things she hadn't in years. She invited Marion over for dinner. She joined a book club at the library. She walked past her old office without flinching. And she went to the hospital once a week, not because she had to, but because she chose to. Boundaries weren't walls. They were doors. And she was finally learning when to open them, and when to close them gently, without guilt. When her parents called now, they didn't ask for money. They asked how she was. It was clumsy, sometimes awkward, but it was enough. And when Diane smiled these days, it wasn't because someone else needed her. It was because she finally belonged to herself.